country. He could have gone back to Ur, but he wasn't. He was looking for this new earth, this new place. Instead, Paul says, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them, Jerusalem, the new heavenly city, the capital of the King of God. Last week, Pastor Gary told me a joke that he'd read in the paper. I've been telling everybody this week because that's a great joke, so I'm not going to tell you. If you want to know what the joke is, you'll have to see Gary or read the paper. About President Obama and Steve Jobs. It's a good joke. It really is. How many of you read anywhere? Okay, that's really kind of a dumb question because you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that Steve Jobs passed away in the last week or so, right? It's on the TV, it's in the newspaper, it was on Time magazine, it was everywhere you go. Even at the opening and the unveiling of the new iPhone 4S, I fully expected all the staff to be wearing mock turtlenecks. In memory of Steve Jobs. Now, I don't know whether Steve was a Christian. I know he also had some very good things to say from time to time. He gave a speech in 2005 at Stanford University. I want to read you just a few pieces. He gave 3 major points to graduates. Gave them all this worldly advice, like everybody that gives a commencement address does, on how they can tackle the world. First 2 points were this. He was showing them how to connect the dots and then talking to them about love and loss, which was about his era of losing his job as the CEO and president of Apple Computer, which he founded. But the third point is the one I want to talk to you about. He recounts this story. He says, when I was 17, I read a quote that went something like this. If you live each day as if it were your last, someday you'll be right. Wow, that's profound. He fully recognized that there's not one person on earth, save one, that ever did not die. And even that one took a temporary reprieve. He said, it made an impression on me. And since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and I've asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, what would I want to do with today? That's not a bad question. And whatever the answer, he said, was that I wasn't satisfied with what I was doing for too many days in a row. He said, I knew I needed to make a change. Then he said this, remembering that I'll be dead soon, there's a pleasant thought, right? Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices of life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear, all embarrassment, all failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you're going to die is the best way to avoid the trap of thinking that you have something big to lose. Now, he's not talking about salvation. He's talking about all the things you accumulate, things like Apple Computer. Being one of the richest men in the world. Those aren't things to count as loss, he says. He says, you're already naked. Therefore, there's no reason to follow your heart. Said about a year ago I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. Doctors told me that almost certainly the type of cancer that I had was incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. He advised me to go home, get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for go ahead and prepare to die. It means try to tell your kids everything you thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few short months. It means make sure everything is buttoned up so that it'll be easy as possible for your family. It means say your goodbyes. He said, I lived with that diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach, into my intestines, put a needle into the pancreas, got a few cells from the tumor. I was sedated, but my wife was there, and she told me that when they viewed the cells under the microscope, the doctors started crying. Because it turned out I had a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is curable with surgery. I had the surgery, now I'm fine, he says. Obviously, this is prior to a week ago. This was the closest thing I've been to facing death, and I hope it's the closest I get for a few more decades. Having lived through it, I can now say this to you with a bit more certainty than when death was a useful but purely intellectual concept. And listen, these are his words. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to get there today. Right? You say, am I hoping to go to heaven? Yes. Well, good. The bus leaves in 5 minutes. No. That's not what we want to hear. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one escapes it. And that's as it should be. Because death is very likely the single best invention of life. Those are hard words. Death is the single best invention of life. Why? He said, it is life's change agent. Clears out all the old, and makes way for the new. John's Revelation says, Jesus says, I am making all things new. The old has passed away and the new has come. But it happens through death. Furthermore, Paul in other letters goes on to say that we don't know what we're going to look like. We don't know what our bodies are going to be like. We know we will have bodies. We're not just going to be disembodied spirits. And he says the reason we don't know is, he said, because we're but a seed at the planting of the Lord. And he said when you put a seed into the ground, it dies so that it can come back as something new. So when you put a sunflower seed in the ground, you don't expect a huge sunflower seed to pop out of the ground. You expect a sunflower to pop out of the ground. We'll know that we're the same. We'll recognize one another, but we will be different. How? I don't know. But even someone like Steve Jobs could recognize, in facing his own mortality, that death was not something to be feared. Isaiah once again wrote these words, a shoot shall come up from the stump of Jesse. Ever cut down a tree? Now, if you don't know what that does, and if you don't know what that looks like, go outside Gary's office doors at the end of the church and look at the bushes on the side of the door where we've cut out the lilac bushes for the last 3 years. The reason we've cut them out for the last 3 years is because every year they come back up. Isaiah says, a shoot will come out of the stump of Jesse. From its roots, a branch will bear fruit. and the Spirit of the Lord will rest upon him. The Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel